Breadcrumbs are those links on top of a page informing the user where they're at while navigating your website. Let's see how you can do that in TanStack Router. But let's begin from the easiest example in our home page. You can see the home label rendered on top, and this comes straight from this line here. But at this point, you might have two questions. First of all, what's this static data and breadcrumb? And the second question, how does this get rendered into, well, this label here? Let's begin from the first one. Static data is something that comes from TanStack Router, and it's basically an interface you can extend. In this specific case, this should be pretty much familiar. In every TanStack Router application, you're gonna have this module you're gonna extend to register your router. Well, here you can also use the interface static data route option to add some custom options. For example, here, if I say that I've got foo, that it's a string, you already see the index.tsx has an error. And the reason is that now static data has not only breadcrumb, but also expects a property called foo. So that's question number one, where does, well, breadcrumb comes from? And question number two is, where is this used? And the answer is it's in the router breadcrumb component I just created. So this is a simple component that basically reads all the breadcrumb values I set into my routes. That can be a string, as the index example, here the home. It can be an array of string or even a function. We're gonna get there in a second. But now the most important thing about all these components here, that's super simple, I have to say, but the key thing is the useMatches hook coming straight from React Router. And this is what makes the magic happen. This hook returns basically an array of all the routes that are matching while a page is being rendered. But the easiest way to explain it is to just show it. If I go back on my Pokemon page, I go back on Charizard, and on the Take Note page, let me open the DevTools, and those are the matches. So here, while I'm inside Pokemon 6 nodes, I'm matching obviously the root of my application, then the route of /Pokemon, the route /Pokemon/6, and same goes for the nodes. And in fact, again, by using the TanStack Router DevTools, I can inspect, for example, the leaf. And here, if I scroll all the way down, I'm gonna see that the meta has static data and nodes. And this string over here is, in fact, if I go on again, Pokemon, the ID, and the nodes page, this is the string we just saw on the DevTools over here. So this basically means that in our router breadcrumb component, the matches array is gonna have 4 elements, and for each element, we can see if they have a static data defined and if breadcrumb is inside one of those elements. Now here, that's just a simple function to take care of cases where our breadcrumb is a function, so we fire the function, or if our breadcrumb is an array or not, and we just grab the label and also the path. As I never specified here where the path is, as in fact, I can just take it from the match object. Again, this is one of the elements of the match route. So there's no need to manually set where this link should point, as it's obviously on the page number Pokemon 6. And if I click here, it's obviously gonna be on the Pokemon list. With that, I'm just parsed the matches array, I flatten my items, and now I've got a list of my breadcrumbs. They're just a label and a path. And this is really the shadcn example of building the breadcrumbs. So in just composing all the elements, and that's the final component. So probably the last question is, okay, cool, but where is this component used? Is it in every single page? And well, the answer is no. You just need to put it once here in the root of your application, and this is gonna be rendered automatically. Now, if you do not want it to appear in some specific routes, it's not currently supported in this example, but I think a simple approach could be here, for example. You could decide that if a route doesn't have the breadcrumb defined, then it doesn't have to show up. Or here, you can just add a show breadcrumb boolean, and if a route has this in the static data, it just hides the component. And there are a couple more things I want to show you, like here I define that you can also use an array, and you can see a live example here in my dashboard. Here I'm inside the dashboard, but it's gonna show private and then dashboard. How can I do that? Well, as I said, this can be an array. So if I go into the dashboard page, Well, instead of a simple string, I just define 2 entries. But probably something cooler is into the Pokemon example. Here, okay, I got Pokemon list, but every time I select a Pokemon, also the breadcrumb takes what's here in the route parameter. Whatever Pokemon I take, this is absolutely reflecting the one I selected. And I can do that by passing the route data to my breadcrumb function. And let me just show the example. This is the route component that is in common to both routes, so the index, the single ID with the Pokemon, and the nose that it's the child of ID. And this route, as you can see here, takes a function into the breadcrumb. It's not just, well, in the other routes here, I have got, for example, nose. But here I can use a function that takes as a parameter the any route match. I'm not really happy with this solution as it's not exactly type safe, but at least I know that match is an object that has, well, anything I could access from a route. So all the things over here. And for example, if I get params, I know that this route has an ID param. It's just here, 2 lines above. And I'm fairly sure params.id is gonna show up. Just to show an example, if I add some strings and I go back into the page, this is what I just added. And you can do a similar thing, for example, with query parameter. In this case, I've got here step 0, so I don't show anything. But when I go into other steps, 1, 2, and 3, I want to show the number of the steps in the breadcrumb. And how can I do that? It's pretty much the same. I can go into the steps routes. And here, once again, I've got my validated search that returns step source params with step as an optional number. And in my static data, I use breadcrumb. This time I deconstructed search, but again, this is the usual match object that is basically any route match. But here, since I want to be kind of type safe, I know that search, again, has exactly this type. So I can do a cast, not ideal, but works fine. And now I know that search.step is number or undefined. And also combining the array notation, I can say that if there's a step, I want 2 entries in my breadcrumbs. If step is undefined or 0, I just want to show steps. And that's exactly what happens here. When I go back to 0, this is gonna disappear. Other variations you might do if you want localization, well, nothing stops you from passing here instead of just a string, the localization key. So here you could just say const t, that's the most used approach, I think, like use translation, whatever. And here, instead of just returning the item, you can just do t of item, and you have localized breadcrumbs depending on your language, and everything follows your usual localization flow. Other things you might want to do is to add here maybe an object notation that has a label and an optional path. So that, for example, if you want some specific breadcrumbs, go into a different path that is not the one we automatically define here, well, you can also do that fairly easily. It's been a long time since I made a video on TanStack, but the thing is, I'm finally back on a project at my day job where we're using TanStack Router in production. So this gives me a lot of other ideas I can bring. For example, I literally implemented breadcrumbs in a project for a customer like 3 days ago. So I just simplified it a little bit and just prepared this video, the video you're watching right now. So that's great news. With that said, thanks for watching this super quick video. Well, even though I think it's gonna be like 10 minutes roughly. But anyway, thanks for watching. If you have requests, just let me know and see you in the next one. Bye.